Who knew there was so much involved in early childhood? We've likely all heard comments about what happens in childcare and preschool. Those comments saying all they do is just play all day. And maybe we've even been those people that have had those thoughts or made those statements. Thanks, Kyle. Not close enough to the microphone. But yes, our kids do play all day, and we know that that is what they need. Aren't we as educators supposed to make learning fun? And isn't it better in our own lives if we're enjoying what we're doing? Everyone here has heard the statement, it takes a village, as well. Think about those families in your communities, and think about families today and how society has changed. Many of our families don't have that same village of support. So how do we, as educators and as the education system, resurrect that village? We need to create the awareness and the notice of what is available in our communities and help families to find that support.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm Bill Brown, Superintendent, Allegan Area ESA, and I strive to be as eloquent as a 7-year-old speaking about brain science. So I've always been an advocate for early childhood education, and like every other service agency around, Allegan Area ESA historically operated in silos. About the time that we started having the conversation about how to truly remove the silos, we had the pandemic occur. And then we experienced some pretty significant staffing changes. And so then what we needed to do was seize that opportunity to make systemic change. We heard a lot from our local districts. We want school to return to the way it was. And I repeatedly said, no, we do not, because it did not work for everyone. So the first decision that was made was to elevate the early childhood department and put the early childhood department on an equal level with instructional services and specialized instruction. Prior to that time, early childhood was under the auspices of instructional services. The more deeply that you bury a department, the less attention it gets. We also began focusing on the whole child network. We reimagined our return to school plans, and we recognized the value of social, emotional, and behavior health. Today is World Mental Health Day. Remember that. It's more than just a day. But we needed to do better for our students. We needed to do better for our families, and we needed to do better for those who serve them. These changes brought about not only the creation of 3 equal yet unique departments, but this desire and this restructuring brought cohesion among our 3 departments across the organization. So, we talk about our general education, special education, and early childhood education combined, and this really has changed our thinking, and we frequently refer to our teaching and learning collaborative. It's up there? All right. Thank you. Oh, it's down there. Look at that with mine. Oh, anyway. With the development of this team, we really set out to authentically break down the barriers and silos to think about the similarities between special education, instructional services, really our general education department, and early childhood, rather than our differences. We know what our differences are, but where are we the same? So we began to ask those questions and to learn more about the work that each department does. From these conversations came discussion about where our work overlaps, how we can do better at aligning and creating those consistencies across our departments through our interactions with our member districts and within our agency and our community partners. We now have 2 cross-departmental interactions. Okay, where's the bigger? Okay, initiatives. And that's focusing, once, as I referenced earlier, on our social, emotional, and behavior health, and within early literacy, which causes our other collaborations to focus on belonging for all, inclusion, where all truly means all, and to not be cliche, and to do better with our coaching and supporting new teachers, as well as supporting brand new administrators in our county. We have 15 new building level administrators this year. As our team begins to think about the potential needs going forward, we think about who else needs to be brought into this work and who else can benefit from this work. While we continue to grow our own interagency collaborations, we also want to ensure that we are growing our programs, growing and improving our services that we provide to our children and our families and ultimately our communities. Lindsay?
Over the last 7 years, our early childhood team has expanded the work that we do, and it continues to grow today. In 2017-18, we became a Help Me Grow Michigan affiliate and worked to create ease of access for the families in our community. Through the use of the Help Me Grow model, we have increased community partners, identified the gaps in the services that we provide, and continue to look for new opportunities to support our families. I am not here today to advocate specifically for Help Me Grow. That's the vehicle that we have chosen to use to help implement and support our system. When I first came into this role, we really did only have a handful of programs that were available to families across the county. We had early on, we had partnered strongly with our Head Start and Early Head Start partners. We have our GSRP program. Our local districts provide early childhood special education as either walk-in or classroom-based. We had our community playgroups as well as participating with Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. But that was about it. And we realized that we had a lot of gaps for our families. And mainly those gaps were happening at those points of transition, when families would transition from one program and exit, whether it was because they'd reached an IFSP goal or they had reached the age of 4 and were exiting from another program. They didn't know where to go. We weren't really able to tell them what was the next step for them. And so, we wanted to think about how do we know that these kiddos will be successful in their next transition. And so we can't forget that a complete system does not just start with kindergarten entry, that it really does start prenatally, and it's our responsibility to help families to connect to programs and services and stay connected. Whether that is because we now have regular messaging and newsletters for families, whether that is mailers, text messages with upcoming events, or even letting families know that it's time for preschool registration, because not sure if you have had a child at this age in any time in the last few years, but you register for preschool in January and February now. And even as a mom 10 years ago, I was not thinking about preschool in January. That was not on my radar. So another huge advantage of having a well-connected system is the ability to collaborate with our community partners and to support families with making those connections. And one great example that we had a family that came through our local WIC office coming in to find services and supports related to WIC. And the mom happened to mention at that visit that she also had some developmental concerns about her child. And thankfully, WIC was one of our community partners, and so they immediately helped that family put in a referral to Help Me Grow. Our care coordinators contacted that family, found out they lived just over that county line in Kalamazoo County. And that same day, we were able to pass along their contact information directly to Kalamazoo RESA. And I believe My understanding is that by the end of that week, they had an evaluation scheduled. So when our systems are connected, when we have those ways to communicate with families and stay in touch, we know that our families have better access to services. We began thinking about our system through a tiered lens, thinking about what do we know we offer, what do we know that we need, and where are those gaps, and what happens kind of at those transitions. So you've seen kind of our tier 1 on the board here, or on the slides here, but thinking about what are the programs and services across our community that all families have access to, and how do we make sure they know about these services? How are our early on providers making sure that families know about community level playgroups, not just early on playgroups? How do we know, how do we make sure that our families know that they all have access to the Ages and Stages questionnaire as a developmental screening tool? It's on our website. It doesn't just have to happen at the physician's office or because they're starting a preschool program. And we continue to think about what does that mean as children age or as their needs increase. So we also know that there are programs and services that some families have access to, either because there are specific requirements related to eligibility factors or income, or developmental delay or disability. And so that tier just kind of continues to go up. So as we started kind of thinking about that through the MTSS model, we can now look at, where are those gaps and how do we continue to increase the communication for those families? And so as we continue to build our system, we continue to look at what are the other silos that are in existence and how do we continue to expand these partnerships and collaborations.
Thank you. And now, I would like to turn it over to my colleague and someone I'm proud to call my friend, Mr. John Searles, who will share more about the early childhood system and the system building in Midland County. Thank you.